Hey everybody, hope this video finds everyone safe and healthy. Over the last few weeks, while the coronavirus has put everything on pause, it's really given us an opportunity to work on some products and some trainings that we've been working on for a while, but we've really been able to focus on them. And we're really excited about them. We know it's going to take our training program to the next level. So over the next few days, you guys are going to be getting some emails where we're going to kind of lay out the theory and how these training programs work out so you understand how they can benefit you. So what we're going to be talking about today is how to reduce the cost of an emergency on your property. All right. So a lot of facilities try to address this in different ways, and we'll talk about some of those methods today, maybe some of the pros and the cons. But before we get to that, we want to talk about the characteristics of an emergency. What are some of the universals in any emergency? So several years ago, this book came out. It's called The Black Swan by the author's name Nassim Taleb. In this book, Taleb uses the term black swan as synonymous for an emergency, whether that is an active assailant in your property, a bomb threat, a fire, or could even be a pandemic like we're going through now. There's some common characteristics of these, and knowing these helps us prepare. So what are those, according to the Black Swan, what are some of those characteristics? First, it's unpredictable or irregular. 2, the impact is massive in a variety of ways. And 3, in hindsight, people are going to say, this should have been predicted, or we should have seen this coming. So let's look at, taking those into account, let's look at what some people do. Some people like to focus on that first leg of the black swan, of the emergency, saying let's predict the unpredictable. So how do we do that? Some buildings conduct threat assessments. And in that threat assessment, you're going to look at maybe deficiencies in your systems or known risks. And those are great. We're big proponents of that. If we can identify those things early and take actions to reduce their effects, whether to mitigate the threat of from a known threat or fix something in our building system, that's great. But please bear in mind that this threat assessment is just a list of the known threats. Obviously, we can't list the unknown threats. And in the Black Swan, Taleb says, absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. So don't take that threat assessment and think that's an all-encompassing list. We always need to be paying attention to other potential threats that we might not be aware of today. And let's also look at another problem with trying to predict the unpredictable is we look at these things as unforeseen. Yes, they are unforeseen, but most of them are not unpredictable, or most of them are unpredictable, but they're not unforeseen. Good example, the pandemic we're going through right now. Who a year ago would have predicted that we'd be going through this today? Nobody would have. But for years, scientists that specialize in this have been telling us the next pandemic is coming. In 2005, the White House published a national strategy for pandemic influenza. In that report, they said that it's coming. What can we do to reduce its impact? Made a bunch of recommendations. One of them was ensure that our national stockpiles are configured to respond to the diversity of medical requirements, including personal protective equipment and general supplies. Let's fast forward to today. What are the big issues that we're facing? Lack of PPE for our medical folks. Lack of general supplies like ventilators. And what are our leaders telling us? This came out of nowhere. It was an unforeseen problem. Now let's compare that to an active assailant in your property. Yes, we can never say if it would ever happen, but they happen with enough frequency that we cannot say that this type of threat was unforeseen. So what do we need to do? Just like in that report, we need to focus on, if it does happen, how do we reduce the impact? How do we focus on the second leg to create a plan that makes your facility less susceptible, makes it more robust? When I say robust, you need to understand the opposite of robust, which is fragility. So let's just, for example, let's say I grab this wine glass, I drop it on the ground, or I throw it on the ground. What's going to happen to it? It's going to break through a bunch of pieces. Why? Because it's fragile. Comparative to that, my Yeti mug. I can throw my Yeti mug on the ground, I can drop my Yeti mug, it's just going to bounce, I'm going to pick it up, keep drinking from it, because this is robust. So what's the difference? So anything that is fragile cannot handle stress, cannot handle trauma. Anything different from the status quo, it's going to fall apart. So let's apply that concept to your building. Think about any Class A. What is the normal environment during the day-to-day? That lobby, it's calm, it's quiet, and then the emergency happens. And from 1 second to the next, we go from calm, we go to chaos, and we are working under time constraints to do the things that can save lives. And an active assailant, that's reducing the number of easily available victims and doing the things to get law enforcement officers to that crisis point as fast as possible. So let's look at this. So let's say the fragile building. What is the fragile building? The fragile building is the one that never came up with a plan, that have never thought about this, and they haven't trained their staff from top to bottom what to do. When that chaos happens, first thing that's going to fall apart is communication. And those key tasks that need to be done to save lives are not going to happen. Let's look at the team that just did a tabletop exercise with the leaders, and they didn't take lessons from that tabletop and turn it into a workable plan. They trained everybody on that building is fragile. Let's compare it to the team that has a basic response plan that they've trained everyone from the senior property manager down to that newest security officer. Chances are much greater they will be able to respond. The chaos will be the same. The stressors will be the same, but they've been trained in a way that they can respond to it in a robust fashion and save lives. So in closing, we ask you this. Think about your building. Honestly, think about it. If this happened today, is your team fragile or are you robust? So in the next video that we're going to be sending you, we'll be talking about ways that we can train your team from top to bottom, both in frequency and way that that training is delivered that maximizes the robustness of your team. Thanks and stay safe.
Hey guys, Carla here. Hopefully you enjoyed Paul's video about the Black Swan. Tons of great information there, and we really wish we could be in front of you, of course. That's where we'd rather be. And if there's any information or feedback you have on the topic, please shoot us an email, give us a call, whatever's easiest. And if you want a copy of the Black Swan, go back to the email. There'll be a link in there. You can click it and it'll take you to Amazon and you can get a copy of the book. Stay safe. Talk to you soon.